So welcome back. We just showed you how to do a select over a PDO connection to your MySQL database. But that's not the only thing we want to do. We want to insert, we want to delete, etc., etc., etc. So now we're going to talk about some code that's going to do a little more sophisticated SQL. The basic idea of making a string and sending it to the SQL database at MySQL server, that's going to be the same. We're just going to see examples of how we might use insert or delete, etc., etc. And you should probably be downloading all this code and looking at it. The slides really don't do it justice, but I kind of cover everything in the slides, and then I go back and re-record little videos that are just showing the code and show the code as it's running. So I go through them once in the slides and then once in sort of code demos. But you probably want to have the code up in a nice syntax colored text editor and see what's going on. So this is user one, and I always have these little things here down like this to say, oh, it's user1.php, so you know that if you go PDO.zip, and it's user1.php, and so that's what I'm working with, okay? Now this assumes that we have a PDO.php, so it requires it. So you'll see this pattern from now on that I don't put the PDO connection in. I just put it in one little file, and then I require it all over the place. So this is now going to do the ModelViewController stuff. And so like any ModelViewController application, I have this line above which is like the model, and below which is the view, the model and the view, and the controller is all these decisions and redirecting, etc., and routing, etc. And so what's going to happen is the first time through, this code is going to not be a post, it's a GET request, so it comes straight through, and it produces this output right here. It produces a form with a post coming back and a name, email, etc., etc. And so that's what happens when we do the GET, the first request. So there's two request response cycles that are going to happen. So it first paints it, then we type in this stuff, type, and then we press the Add New button. And when we do that, that causes, oh, I want to change the color. That causes another request, and this time the post data. So we're going to use isSet to say, is there a name field in the post data, and an email field in the post data, and a password field in the post data? That means that this stuff got filled in, right? Then this is the code that deals with the incoming post data. That got skipped the first time as we did the GET request. And so then what happens is we write some SQL. So we say insert into users, parenthesis name, email, and password. That's just a list of the columns. And then values equals, and these are little placeholders, colon name, colon email, colon password. Say these are the values that we're going to read. Now, those are placeholders, and I'll print out the SQL, and that causes this to print out right here. And then we do what's called a prepared statement. So instead of running the query directly, we say, we pass this SQL, the insert statement, we pass it in and say parse it and read it and figure out where the little placeholders are. And then we have to do it in two steps. We say execute, and then we pass in as a parameter, the name maps to post subname, email maps to post subemail, password. This, I could have made this be X and L and M, and then this would be M, L, and X down here. Oops, X. I happen to call it name, email, and password, and they happen to have the same name as these things, but it's not automatic. The placeholders, names are stuff you come up with, and these values right here are effectively from the form. So what that does is that basically puts this data in here, this data in here, and this data in here. And then when we say execute, it actually sends that insert statement to the database. Okay, and so it right in here, at this moment here, it has done the insert, doesn't say anything, and then it falls through and puts out the form again. So it comes, we don't do anything here, we just kind of fall through and put the form again. So that's basically how user one works. It has this sort of ModelViewController. We run the code twice, right? We run the code twice. Once is a GET and bypasses this that prints this out and prints out this. Then when we push this button, it runs the code again and comes in, and now these things, this code's triggered because those ifs are all true, and it runs through and runs an insert statement pulling the data from the form into the database. And so now those three values are now in the database. And so there we go. We take a look, and we take a look at our database, and we've got a third record. And of course, we didn't have to do anything with the user ID because that's an auto increment field when we define the database. It's the same. The SQL you send from PHP is identical to the SQL that you would type in PHP MyAdmin. It's just identical. It's It's beautiful. I just can't get over how awesome it is. Okay, so now we're going to take a little bit of different tack on this, and what we're going to do is we are going to add a little pretty output. So it's not that different. Most of it's the same. This part up here is the same. If you look, it's the same. It just is the thing that checks to see when the post happens, away you go. But now what we're going to do is add this little part here, okay? And so we're just going to do a select, name, email, and password from users. So this is going to grab those 3 columns. We're not doing the user ID yet. And we're going to have a loop. We'll print out a table, and then we're going to print out table rows, 1 for each row, and end the table, and that's going to print this little bit out, right? So this is what was in it. A GET request comes in, skips this part, then it prints out the 3 things in the table, and then it continues on, and then it puts out that form with a submit the way we did before. And so you can type a new thing in here, a new thing in here, and hit the submit button. It runs here, it does an insert, and what will happen is you'll see a little 4th row there. It'll look exactly the way you want it to look, okay? And so this is just, now we've added a dump in a table of the contents of a dump of that table in a dump of the database table into an HTML table. The word table is being used too many times. Okay, so now let's look at how you might delete something. And so what we're going to do is we are going to make a little delete form. We'll start just with this little form, just so you can take a look at it, and it's going to get the PDO connection. It has a little bit of code that it skips, you know, if it's a GET request, and the GET request just puts this screen up, and there is a user ID, a delete button, and we put in some ID, like 3. And then we hit the submit. We put the word delete on the button, so we hit the submit, and it runs again, and this time user ID is set. We say delete from users where user ID equals :zip. :zip is again one of those placeholders. And we do a prepare of that, which parses the SQL and sees if we did something horrible. And then we're going to execute, and we're going to say, okay, please take the post date of user ID, which is this 3 number, and then put that in here. So that effectively puts 3 into that right there. And then it runs it. And so that is what then deletes user ID number 3 from the database. So you hit that button, and it'll delete that. Okay? And so it runs, and you can see it prints out the SQL here, right? It deletes the user, it runs the delete, user ID equals zip. It doesn't show you that little 3 number, but it does it. And so then you take a look, and poof, user ID 3 is gone. Okay, and so that's how you run a delete. So now let's do user3.php, and this is just playing with the HTML. Okay? This is just playing with the HTML. So if we look at what we're going to try to do here, we're going to have a table, we're going to have a form to do the add, this code we've seen before, but what we're doing is this little del trick, little delete trick, okay? So we're going to construct some HTML in that table cell. Literally everything else in this next program is identical, except we're going to put a delete button on the row. Now, these aren't very pretty, but you can make CSS and HTML to make them prettier. I'm just starting out making them crude to keep it simple. Okay, so what we have is we have the, up above there, we have the insert code up there. We have the delete code that we pulled in from that del code. And we have the table code that we haven't changed at all. This first 3 lines of the table code is unchanged. We pull the delete post handling, and the insert's up there too. It just, you're not seeing it here. It's, if you go into the user3.php, you'll see the insert code and the delete code. The delete and the insert code are different because it knows that there's a post of delete and there's a user ID. But the fun thing is how to get this little thing to come out. Oops, come back, come back. No. How to get this little guy to come out. And that is in a table cell. So we're table cell, third table cell. This is the 4th table cell. It's a TD and a /TD. And now I am going to put in the table cell an entire form. Okay, I'm putting a form in the table cell. I say it's a form method equals post, input type equals hidden. A hidden field is like a text field that doesn't show up in the UI. So in every one of those little table cells, the user ID, the name equals user ID will have the value of the user ID, because this time I did a select asking for not just the name, email, and password, I also wanted the primary key for every row. And so then I print that out right here. So 1, 2, 3 will be that user ID. And then I put out a little input type equals submit with the name Del and delete. And so if we take a look at this, and we look at the view source of this, if we look at the view source, it'll look kind of like this, right? So in that table definition, there's a form. There's going to be a hidden field with the value equals 5, whatever the primary key of this last added thing is. And this one will be like 1, 2, 3, 5. Each one will have, there's 4 forms on this screen, and this is just one of those forms. And we know which one to delete by it's different. So you can, actually is 5 forms on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is a form 2. So you can have many forms on a screen, and you kind of know with things like this what button is being pushed, right? So, so away we go. So we've got a little tiny form. When we click this button, it sends a post back to the user3, whatever it is, user3.php, right? It sends a post back, and then that post runs this code right there, and then does the delete. And then it falls through after the delete, and then it reads everything out. So if you hit the delete button, it will come back, and it will only show you 4 of them, right? So you can insert somebody, you can delete somebody. So you just play with this, insert, delete, insert, delete, insert, delete, until you really kind of understand what all that code is doing. So here is sort of the whole code bit for user 3. We start out with require PDO.php. We have the code that we got that does the insert, the form at the bottom. We have the little tiny delete forms that send to this. And because we've chosen our names, and email and password have to be set for this code to execute, it knows whether to run this or whether to run this. So it only runs this when it's doing an insert, and it only runs that when it's doing a delete. And if it's doing a get, it doesn't do any of it, just goes right by it. So this is kind of the model of our ModelViewController. And the little line is right there at the bottom. So we're about to switch from the model part to the view part. So this bottom part is the view part. Okay, so now we'll take a look at the view. The top half of the view, the first part, is that little HTML table. Right? So the HTML, head, table, and then we're going to do a query. Yeah, we're doing a little bit of work inside the view, which is a little tacky, but it's okay. We're going to do that. We can move that up and leave that in a variable and have it fall across as the context. But for now, we're just going to do a select. We're going to do a little printing thing. All this stuff here to print the little del button. That's the del button. Right? And then out we go. So that's the first half of the view. And the second half of the view is simply that form that is the form to add the new user. And so and then we're done with the entire thing and have a slash body tag. And so that's the overall outline of this user 3. So take a look at it and try to understand every single line. I try to keep them as simple as possible and take a look at how they work. So up next, we're going to talk about some of the issues on validation and security having to do with SQL injection.